Stay tuned at the end of each episode for music videos that will recap the events of the program. They will be re-released eventually under the title Star Cruiser: Voided Journey. Welcome, ladies and gentlepeople, to the Swan Song of the 1980s. This has been something that I have been wanting to do for the past 5 years, and I'm happy that this is finally coming to pass. Welcome, ladies and gentlepeople, to Star Cruiser, a 1988 space opera that just so happened to have been only available on Japanese computers and a Japanese Megadrive for over 30 years. The Megadrive retelling of the game by Masaya ended up being, translated over in 2016 thanks to Celcion and the folks over at Nebulous Translations. Though the original game never actually had a proper translation. I don't even know if it was even bound to get a localization in the States or at least in Europe. So what ended up happening was, Celcion and company was actually working on this for, I want to say, the past few years. They wanted to do some bug fixes to the game because, of course, the original had a lot of mishaps. But what ended up happening was that didn't happen. So what you see here is a full-on translation of the Sharp X68000 port, and a good amount of the bugs intact, but with some extra help to make the game a bit more bearable, including a money cheat. And you might notice it because of the way that the game functions. Improved AI, much to my shock and surprise. It's slightly improved. It's not 100%, but if you are familiar with the original game, or at least the original Japanese version of the Sharp X68000 port, you'll know exactly what I mean. This title is possibly notable for having, I want to say, 8 separate soundtracks. 8 separate versions of the same soundtrack across multiple audio chips, including the YM2203, YM2608, PS-Gay-03, and the YM2151, alongside the 2612 in the MD version. But Star Cruiser MD is going to be talked over much differently once we get to that. So, might as well discuss what this game is about. So the story involves an organization called Void, a criminal organization that has basically taken over 4 separate star systems: the Solar System, Rigel Kent, Sirius, and Barnard. A late 20-something-year-old bounty hunter by the name of Brian Wright, along with a good amount of his friends, are aiming to take down Void in a kamikaze-style effort. Unfortunately, on his way to Jupiter or elsewhere, he ends up having his ship destroyed, and, well, he needs to figure out what he needs to do. So, he ends up landing on a solar wind base in his land tank. Fortunately, the land tank is still usable. But, thanks to the money cheat, you can constantly get 100,000 credits every single time that you revisit the ship after the 7th revisit. So, I decided to grind up to 23 million. And that will make things a bit more bearable as the time goes on. Now, those of you that have seen Star Cruiser in action elsewhere, at least on YouTube, you'll notice that the game is playing much faster than it's supposed to be. Because the original Sharp X68000, of course, plays at 10 megahertz. For the sake of making this game as fast as possible, bear in mind, this is going to be over 11 hours once this is done. I am playing this game via Sharp X68030 standards. The 030 ran at 25 megahertz at stock. And fortunately, thanks to the likes of XM6 Type G, possibly the most hardware-accurate emulator for the Sharp X68000 at this time, you can really make this game work wonders at higher frequencies. Star Cruiser is a very frequency-dependent title, and it's because of the rendered graphics. The pre-rendered graphics. It makes fights that much easier. You do, however, run out of energy quicker. So, the fortunate thing is, because you actually have to rely on the speed of the game, you actually can take more time being able to or actually no, you actually end up taking less time defeating enemies. But if you stay idle in the maze long enough, or if you take too long doing fights, you can run out of fuel in the worst of forms. Cannot stress that enough. But fortunately, these castels, they go down very... It's either castel or castle. I prefer castle. That sounds better. But yeah, these enemies go down very quickly. However, as any good RPG is, this is just the beginning of the game. Some enemies will become gradually harder when we have to fight them again. And in many cases, some enemies will show up in 2s, 3s, or 4s. But fortunately, by the time that we have to deal with them, we'll have upgrades. Well, over time, you're going to get weapon upgrades, shield upgrades, new engines, better single-use items, and just everything else in between. And down goes the solo wind base. So Brian, of course, was talking with Daniel Gibson. Gibson, I don't know exactly how long these two have known each other, but from the way that they are, they appear to be good friends. Though through the course of the events that happen throughout this title, you'll probably understand how their bond somewhat shifts over time. Now, this is a title that requires you to have to reach certain areas in order to upgrade your ship. Now, with the money cheat, obviously, I can get certain weapons early on. The quantum gun I just received, however, cannot be used immediately. You actually have to... That's an unfortunate thing. It's not like Phantasy Star, which, honestly, Star Cruiser might as well just be Phantasy Star in the form of a first-person shooter. Because, in Phantasy Star, if you somehow manage to get, I think it's the Diamond Sword at the very beginning of the game, while you're on Parma, Alice keeps that weapon throughout the entire course of the game. You don't have to worry about losing it or having to go to a certain dungeon or whatever to upgrade. But no, here you have to. So yeah, the difficulty is indeed reasonable, but it can be rather brutal if you are unfamiliar with how this title plays. Also, by the way, because of all these trees and rocks, the more models that are on screen, especially if you're using a weaker processor, oh my goodness, the speed that this game tanks. I mean, it tanks. It tanks badly. Now, apparently these are Coniferous Trees. This is one of, I think, only like 3 or 4 trees, I think, probably 3, that only show up throughout the entire course of the game. Much to my shock and surprise. Coniferous trees, however, are the most common. Hello, Stamek. Now, the AI of these enemies are actually very, they are the same every single time. They will show up in the same spots every single time, and it's mostly up to RNG as to how to defeat these enemies. But, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. Again, it's not the easiest task in the world, it's definitely not the hardest, but at the very early parts of the game, even Rudora can become brutal if you're not familiar with how to take them down with the atom gun. In fact, speaking of which, the atom gun actually takes up the most energy out of any weapon in this game, or at least at the beginning. I would say by the time that you get Gravity Gun 3 near the 40%, 35-40% mark, you'll probably have a much more bearable experience, but for now, this is what you have to worry about. The quantum gun definitely, however, is a very great energy saver, so once you have it, just switch over. Another fortunate thing, though, about me using Type G for this particular title is the fact that this game is brutal to play on keyboard. I will not stress that enough. Because, to strafe and rotate the ship at the same time, or just to move forward and rotate the ship, your directional keys and your number keys are 2 different pieces here. They work very differently from each other, much to the point where you have to use a joystick. But even at that, There aren't a lot of regular game controllers that function very well with this particular title. So I have to use Joy to Key. I had to map everything cleverly on the DualShock 2, and well, the rest speak for itself. That explains this very fluid gameplay, and actually why I decided to do some, mini speedruns, just as rehearsal for the main thing. So here's the first upgrade of the game that you get. So this Meister here basically lets you know that you can now use Homing Missile 1, Beam Booster 1, and Ore Processing Machine 1. Or Converter 1, as it's also known as. Beam Boosters will increase the level of your attack, I want to say about 10 or 20%. I'm not exactly sure, I haven't checked the manual in a while. Homing missiles are exactly as they sound. You're able to just use those, and using missiles does not take up does not take up fuel, because of course they're missiles. It's not generated by the ship, therefore it doesn't take up energy. And ore processing machines or converters scattered throughout the entirety of these star systems are meteors, asteroids. There are blue, brown, and gray. Blue asteroids represent deuter ores. Brown asteroids represent metal ores. And the gray ones represent heavy ores. Deuter ores will refill your energy. Metal ores require Converter 3, if my memory serves correctly, and will give you repair kits. So just in case if you end up losing a part of your ship when you have no shield, like if you lose, the navigator, or if you have your engine oozing out energy twice as fast, or if you're unable to use your weapon, or fate forbid, you lose the ducking cargo room. Oh, yeah, it's things like that you need to. It's things like that you basically need the repair kits for, and then the heavy ores will give you, I think it's called thermonuclear missile. It's known in this game, however, as H-shot. These are very heavy missiles that when you shoot them, if you can land the attack proper, the enemy will die out much quicker, and it does extreme amounts of damage. But you'll notice that even though, yes, I get H-shot 1, 2, and 3 throughout the course of this game, I don't have to use them. I really don't. They have such bad accuracy that it's really unnecessary. And I mean heavily. If I had to say, though, one of the biggest issues that this game... Oh, by the way, this right here, this is a merchant shop. Basically, you can sell items here. If it has the red, that means you can sell. Also, yep, this is here, right here. You can get your Booster 1, and also, you can only hold up to 80 missiles. That is a big problem with a title such as this. I honestly thought you could hold up to 99, because, I mean, you could hold up to 99 ores, but you can only hold up to 80 missiles, 88 shots, let's see, later on we're going to get decoy flares, well, I'll explain that when the time comes. You can only hold up to 20 of those, and for repair kits, you can only hold up to 40. The sad thing, too, is you can't even upgrade your ducking cargo room, so it doesn't even make sense that they would have the numbers be that low, but I'm assuming that's just within the size capacity of the Star Cruiser. Then again, it's to be expected. It's to be expected from a game like this. Like this. This was 1988, 1989. If memory serves correctly, oh, by the way, you can tell how much faster Booster 1 kills these things. But yeah, I think the Sharp X68000 port, if my memory serves correctly, came out on April 14 of 1989. Yes, the 7 of diamonds with the 9 of clubs is PR. I get along very well with April 14. Very, very great date. Now, depending on the emulator that you're playing on, you actually can have some complications with the way that the display of this title is, because it actually is heavily dependent on making sure that all graphics layers are visible. If you're using the original XM6, in this case Pro X68K, no matter which version you're using, Star Cruiser for some reason doesn't show, like you see how you see the background there? The background actually won't look like the background, it's just going to be monochromatic like how the 4 is. And that ultimately is just a technical constraint of the emulator, from what I know. I can't exactly be sure. By the way, you see me constantly going you constantly see me going back to refuel Brian's ship. Fuel is possibly the one thing that holds Star Cruiser back from being an ideal title. I mean, don't get me wrong, this title is revolutionary. It's a role-playing game. You got first-person dungeons like Phantasy Star. It's a first-person shooter. And in many respects, Arsis did what was, I think, at that time, very impossible. It's one of the first 100% open-world games of its era. And this ultimately made the groundwork for future open-world titles. But I don't think we really would experience like truly open-world titles until, I want to say, 3D gaming started really becoming a thing. Oh, by the way, we just ran into, this is Daigo Hidaari. Daigo Hidaari is one of the greatest meisters in the entire universe. And it definitely shows. The only thing is, however, he's using a Castell ship. He's using a Castell ship to defend himself, but hey, he and Brian immediately become good friends, although don't get me wrong. I think if you're talking to a guy that looks like Stan Lee, you're probably gonna become good friends with him anyway. But Daigo Hidaari can be a bit stubborn. He can be a bit mad at times. I actually find it interesting, too, that the way that they designed his art style, his hair is white, but you notice that there's like a slight shade of like cyan or turquoise that's there. You don't see that often. You really don't see that often. By the way, you might have noticed that I had unlocked a gate. The reason why I had to unlock that gate was just so I could go to Hidaari much faster, and it definitely will make a difference. Now, there are some different names for each character in the original Star Cruiser. In this game, Daigo, his surname is Hidaari, but elsewhere, in Star Cruiser MD, for example, his name is Sakai. Daigo Sakai. It feels weird. I prefer Hidaari, but honestly, the way that Masaya handles Star Cruiser MD, I mean, the game takes place in, like, the ducking 26XX century. We are in the late 24XX century in this title. Now, you might be wondering why I'm heading to Earth first, instead of heading to Mercury. Now, yes, the items I need are on Mercury. The parts I need to upgrade the ship are on Mercury, but you're gonna lose a lot of energy on Mercury the first time around. So what I've grown to learn is, at least on 25 megahertz, go to Earth first. That way you can refill your ship. If you have to go and get some missiles or whatnot, just go over there. You're gonna have a fun time. Also, you have to visit Yuko. This is Yuko Hidaari. Yep, this is, if I remember correctly, this is Daigo's granddaughter. Unfortunately, due to the issues that have happened with Void, Yuko's mother and father are gone. They perished. So, yeah, one of the reasons why why Daigo is helping out Brian is ultimately for revenge. And you'll understand why once you get the quantum engine, the quantum gun upgrade. You'll see why he wants to help out so much. Sydney Port? I'm just reading this. Are we in Australia? Because it actually just hit me. Because I honestly forgot about some of the information that is spread. Like if you go to certain areas, it'll tell you the name of the area that you're in. And it's nice details such as this. So right here, so this is the enemy. This is the void enemy hideout on Earth. Gibson. Yeah, Gibson is stuck there, but you cannot go there until you have talked with the person in that green tower, and also once you've gotten the quantum upgrade. Until then, however, your mission is set to go to Mercury. Now, technically, you could take on certain things at your own luxury. Like for example, you could go as far as Pluto in the solar system, but the only thing is, you'll understand come part 3 why you do not go to Pluto early. Oh, I cannot stress that enough. Also, kind of one thing that does make this game a bit slower too is the fact that, unlike Star Cruiser MD, which had a much better warp drive, the warp drive that is in the regular Star Cruiser at the beginning of the game is extremely slow. So as a result, you're only going to be going just a little bit at a time. But, you know, that's to be expected. You're not supposed to be all-powerful at the beginning of the game. No person is supposed to be all-powerful at the beginning of the game. But, you know, no, excuse me. But, you know, having come into this from playing Star Cruiser MD, the fact that this game relies heavily on money, and, you know, I want to just have this game go as fast as possible. Any RPG that I ever do is going to be like this. If there's a money cheat, I will use it. Yeah, if there's a money cheat, I will use it. If there's a decently understandable level-up cheat, I will use it as deemed necessary. Because, let's face it, the original Phantasy Star, for example, is going to be brutal. That game relies so heavily on you having the best weapons and virtually limitless magic at the beginning, and money as well, that I can't personally go through that game without using a cheat code. Because if I were to do this without cheats, if I were to do this solely with money grinding, it probably would take 24 hours to complete this game, not 10 and a half to 11. And I say 10 and a half because the main footage you see here will be roughly 10 and a half hours, but, you know, there's other stuff. You know, I've got promotions to do, I've got music videos that will be at the end of every part. There's going to be a lot of stuff that makes up this game. And at the same time, to make things go a little faster, this is only going to be an 8-part commentary. Now, you might wonder, how am I going to put 8 parts into 10 and a half to 11 hours into 8 parts? It's a little simpler than that. I decided the way that I do any RPG, and this goes for Phantasy Star, goes for Final Fantasy, Front Mission, even the Grand Theft Auto franchise, among others. I will only ever handle this game, or in any other, in the form of sagas. The saga template it's actually, in my view, pretty promising. So, you know, you have long parts, such as this. This is, you know, over 100 minutes. Over 100 minutes. Just about as long as, say, like a Roya Talk episode, or half the length of a Royameadow live broadcast from 2016. This honestly kind of reminds me of the way that I handled Minnesota Fat's Pool Legend, or Side Pocket 2 MD. And also, in some regards, as to how I was kind of handling Legend of the Hustler. I actually do need to get back to Legend of the Hustler. That will be coming as soon as Modern Legacy starts up. But, of course, let's see, it's not going to just be that, it's also going to be Shaq Fu and a whole bunch of other titles in the long run, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But honestly, the way that I handle this, doing the saga template, handling big chunks of game, not only make it so that, you know, you have more to watch, and so you don't have to worry about, you know, not really being fed your decent fair share of Star Cruiser, but at the same time, it allows for a lot of information to be in one place at one time. And that honestly is why I'm at least appreciative of the way that YouTube, over the past 8 or so years, has improved the time caps. The fact that you were able to finally upload videos longer than 15 minutes in the early 2010X decade was a godsend for many people, especially those that did role-playing game commentaries. I ultimately feel that that's part of the reason why Final Fantasy VI on Brain Scratch Comms was so good. Because again, had John had to split those into 9-minute parts, I feel that there would be much more filler in Brain Scratch Comms commentary of Final Fantasy VI than what we got. And, I can actually say the Symphony of the Night is kind of that way, too. I do feel that, had Ted been able to have all of Ace Attorney be recorded proper, at least for the channel, I think that would have gotten more... Fortunately, he had recorded that title when the time cap was already lifted. But I do feel that if that had to have been, you only upload like 9 minutes and 59 seconds to 11-minute parts, that probably would have been brutal for a title such as that. Anything that's like anything that's an RPG or a text adventure, you need long parts. No two ways about it. No two ways about it. I'm sure that there are people that probably do benefit from smaller episodes with RPGs, or maybe even a supercut formula, kind of like what you would see out of Toby Turner or Markiplier. But this is just the template that I'm using here. This is the Clement template. This is the Brain Scratch Comms template. This is the Super Gaming Brothers template. The Big Dip on a Bus Joshua Adams template. All of this is what I grew up with. Because, I started really going into video game commentaries, or at least watching them. Oh, hey, here are the Deuter ores! All the blue asteroids you need in the world. But, this is the template that I've really been exposed to since 2008. There is no better template than this. Oh, by the way, I do have to warn you, if you somehow manage to do a warp like that, see, when you're on autopilot, the second that you start to reach the planet, you're gonna notice that your speed starts dropping, and on the weakest on the weakest engine, the Monopoly engine. Yes, I know it's spelled monopole, but it's the Monopoly engine. Come on. But yeah, the Monopoly engine goes so slow that you're literally going to be traveling towards the planet at 5 miles an hour if you do a warp like what I just did. So, I actually think it's probably wiser to take a play out of either, I think his name is Ichiro Tanaka, if I remember correctly. He recorded the PC-88 version, the original PC-88 version of Star Cruiser on his channel. I'd recommend you to also go over there if you want to watch this game in Japanese in its initial form, running, I think, at, 5 megahertz? Was the PC-8800 5 megahertz? And then the PC-9800 7 megahertz? Or something around that. I don't know what the Sharp X1 port was. Sharp X1 actually is pretty decent in its own right. We already have 25 repair kits! So yeah, it's either a play out of his book, and also a play out of Spolon Sergey's handbook, with the way that he handled his beta testing for the Sharp X68000 English translation. In fact, there are certain key details in the Sharp, in Spolon's run that differ from mine. But of course, it's not just because he played on Pro X68K at 10 megahertz, but it's also because that was an earlier version of the translation. There are actually certain details that are different in that. Also, yeah, if you can check the personnel file if you want to take a look at the bios for certain characters. Like, you got Gibson and then Meister Hidari. Again, we're at the end of the 24XX century, so for him to have been born in 2418 sounds believable. Wait, hold up here. Then 03. Something doesn't seem right. I mean, unless if Hidari was born, like, in 2318, you know, that sounds believable. Because remember, we're in the 2400s, so it wouldn't sound so far-fetched for a good amount of people to be in, like, their late hundreds or something. But yeah. Is she looking good as always? Oh my goodness. yeah, she's looking good as always, Master Roshi. She's always looking good. Oh my goodness, but either way, so you have to talk with Hidari's pupil. Yep, all right. I'll wait a bit more. I honestly like, however, how Hidari talks to Brian here, because it actually does show that Brian does have a bit of a, I don't know, like a Scorpio sense of stubbornness to him, but honestly, that's fine. That's totally fine. He actually kind of reminds me of myself in some ways. Honestly, I think that's kind of why I have grown attached to Star Cruiser, because I feel that the storyline of Brian Wright kind of reminds me a bit of myself. Because, you know, I'm not a materialistic man. Don't get me wrong. I want the best stuff, and I want it now. But in my view, time is of no obstacle. I can be as patient as possible for something. And hey, you know, a scenario like this, look at what Brian's getting. He's getting the quantum upgrade for free. Normally it would cost $10,000, but, you know, Hidari can tell that Brian's a good guy. He is mad about what happened to his son and wife. That he wants total revenge. He wants Brian to give these mother duckers some hell. And honestly, this is the best. This is the best kind of treatment. You know, sometimes you can get stuff for doing it. You can just get stuff for being yourself, or out of pure generosity. And this is honestly I like this. I like scenarios such as this. You don't come across them often in your life sometimes, but you know, somebody such as myself, I can easily say, you know, if I, like, for example, you know, eventually I'm gonna gut out all my desktops. Now I will gut out all my desktops from 1992 to 2018. Yes, I have desktops dating as far back as 92 and 98. You know, I'll have them gutted out. The project is going to cost, it'll cost at least $91,000, if not more, if I wanted to at least do HEDT and not server grade, because I don't think that, I don't feel that I have to necessarily have Xeon Platinums or Epic 7742s. You know, I would just be more than satisfactory, you know, the highest i9s and Ryzen 9s, Threadrippers, Xeon Ws. Some I might need to wait for Meteor Lake. Some I'll need to wait in order to have data server quality, especially my wise decision for 86SI. That's the 1992 Slimline. But you know, if I were ever to get any kind of donations or something to upgrade my hardware like this, you know, I would take it with full gratitude and pay it forward when the time comes, when the time is proper. Until that time comes, though, you know, you still get to enjoy me talking over a game such as this. Also, by the way, there's a sales shop. I don't know if I showed it off, but yeah, you can basically sell some items here too. But now we get to go here. So it just says there's a building here. Okay, so now this is where Homing Missile 1 comes in handy. And this is where you're really going to start seeing me take the speedrunner route, where you see me going full-on ballistic with these missiles. I mean, look at how fast you can kill some of these things with Homing Missile 1. Homing Missile 1, 2, and 3, you can use this method at all times. Also, I am very appreciative of the fact that, now you see how the green bars down there are going down under the missile icon? It actually shows you how many missiles you have in real time. That is a ducking godsend in a game like this. Because I think, if my memory serves correctly, in the original PC 88 and also the 9800 ports, I think my, if my memory serves correctly, from what I remember from Tanaka's run in, not Spellon's, actually, well, Spellon also recorded the PC 88 version of the game, don't get me wrong, I haven't watched that run, though. If my memory serves correctly, though, your weapon, excuse me, air bubble, your weapon indicator was shown with a meter. It wasn't shown using individual blocks. That is what makes the Sharp X68000 port so essential to overall gameplay. And Star Cruiser MD would also carry out similar with the way that they handled missiles in that game. It actually showed you a number, how many missiles you had left on your heads-up display at all times. That's ultimately, however, what made the Sharp X68000 port the best of the bunch. What I also don't know, however, about the older ports, the NEC PC 8800 and 9800 ports, as well as the Sharp X1 variant, I do not know if those games have any, improved frequency. And this may prove troublesome once I get over to Star Cruiser 2, the Odysseus project. Because that game came out on both the PC 9800 and FM Towns. I do not know the frequency of the 9800 and FM Towns proper. I don't know if you could put faster chips in them. I don't know if they're overclockable to a reasonable degree. And I don't know if there are any emulators that are able to do that. So I'm going to need to do my homework, a massive amount, before I can even go into Star Cruiser 2. Once I know that information, however, then we'll get to that game proper. It shall be a fun time for everybody involved. No two ways about it. Also, I kind of like if your weapon meter is, if you have 80 missiles or 88 shots, it'll show that your bar is blue. But the second you use a weapon, it goes orange. Amazingly, however, if you're extremely low on weapon, it doesn't go red. But yeah, the reason why I have to refill constantly is because you will run out of energy here if you try killing all these enemies if you try killing these enemies only on Quantum Gun. You'll have to rely heavily on refills. And if you collected any Deuter ores, more power to you. You will need them. Now, because I already have an energy tank, you might wonder how many Deuter ores refills the tank. Oh, by the way, I forgot to pick up Gibson. I passed by the gate. But I think the reason... Actually, no, I take it back. I think the reason why I did it this way is to prove that you actually do need to get Gibson before you can leave the, before you can leave Earth proper. What was it? Dang, I lost my train of thought. Ugh! I really despise when that happens. So, let's see. So, okay, Quantum Gun. Just using the atom of Quantum Gun is not enough. Missiles, the frequency. Oh, yeah. So, the constant desire for overclocking, or at least showing how a game would play at maximum potential, is the reason why I started going into certain emulators, such as Regen, specifically version 0.972D, D meaning debugger. Because in that emulator, you can overclock the Motorola 68000 to as high as, I think, like 6,000 or 8,000 cycles per line for a stable overclock anyway. And it actually comes in handy for certain titles, like Star Cruiser MD is very frequency dependent, and the gameplay is actually much more stable and faster at higher frequencies, though, don't get me wrong, Brian's ship can also get destroyed faster, so stock up on your homing missile 1 and make sure you have that string beam. But as for other things, like, for example, Type G, XM6 Type G, for a game such as this, it's very beneficial. There are other beneficial frequency-dependent titles. Yeah, there are other frequency-dependent titles that benefit from an emulator such as this, which, mind you, can run it as high as 100 megahertz. What else can overclock? Certain versions of DOSBox. Because I actually wanted to do that so I could optimize how, what game is it? Lotus 3. Lotus 3, the Ultimate Challenge, is heavily dependent on frequency in order to run properly at 60 frames per second. Otherwise, you're going to be seeing choppy frame rate throughout the game at all times. In fact, if my memory serves correctly, WinUAE, which is the Amiga emulator, I think that also has good overclocking potential. The only problem is, I personally can't use that emulator properly. I used to be able to in 2016 and 17. Well, no, 2016, yeah, no, I'm right, 2016 and 17. But when I updated it to the most recent build, for some reason, it's not able to recognize my files. It's not able to recognize my games. It's not going to boot up. And yeah, that's just been the problem. But yeah, if you can find an emulator that can, 1, do overclocking, 2, run on a faster processor, in the case of the Amiga, as high as the 68060, or just something that can maximize cycles per line, in this case Regen and DOSBox, you can work wonders. Oh, by the way, here we are on Venus now. Now, Venus, as you notice, has a lot of water. And this is explained further when you play, let's see. Yeah, in Star Cruiser MD, it is mentioned that the reason why Venus looks this way is because humans somehow managed to make Venus habitable. They were able to do proper climate control, and so as a result, Venus basically became what Matavia is in Phantasy Star. So what you have here is a very luxurious, very lush water planet. But if at any point that were to go down, if that entire climate control system were to get destroyed, remember, at minimum, if my memory serves correctly, Venus is 900 degrees Fahrenheit. And alongside that, if without climate control, they have acid rain. People would perish almost instantly if such climate control was gotten rid of. Speaking of people perishing, looks like Void's fleet came here. Void terrorists just murdered a whole bunch of hunters. The Hunters Guild is officially done. Before it even began. And they arrest so this right here, this is Federal Patrol Officer Cherenkov. Cherenkov is probably one of the most comical characters in Star Cruiser MD. But in a game such as the original Star Cruiser, he is actually much more chillax. He's lazy, he doesn't want to search for justice, so it just seems better for him to just take Masashi Clark as prisoner and call it a day. So it's up to Brian and David Geed here to get some information. Also, at this point, since Masashi Clark has been arrested, you cannot leave the planet. Well, then again, you wouldn't be able to leave the planet anyway, because they would suspect you of also being a terrorist and then lock you up, which I think is what they did in they did do something similar to that in MD. But, you know, as I said, we'll talk about Star Cruiser MD when we get the Star Cruiser MD. So, you know, we're gonna go here to Geed for a little bit. Ishtar port. You know, I think that's actually kind of fitting that they would pit Venus and Venus and Ishtar together, because, you know, putting those two together is kind of it's like a love storm waiting to happen. Oh, that's interesting. So, you know, you go here. So, yeah. So Cherenkov basically says that you have to go and find some information. And what better way to find information than to kill a whole bunch of void thugs? So we're going to be doing that. You will have to be extremely strategic on here, though. And the reason why I say this is because these shops do not have what you're looking for. This weapon shop should have homing missile 1, but it does not. This is extremely crucial, because if at any given point you run out of fuel, you are bombed. It is a game over. If you run out of weapon here, you have to start using your gun. So it's going to be a mixed bag. It's going to be a very, very serious mixed bag. Also, Analyzer 1 helps you to have the ability to read the info cards that you receive. You will be able to get Analyzer 1, 2, and 3 throughout the course of this game. Oh, hey, is this a sumo wrestler? Or is this just a dude with a small ladder on his head? I can't tell. He's probably a reference to some famous wrestler or something, but either way, I wouldn't really be able to tell you. I don't know a lot of the inside references that the original Star Cruiser has, as well as if there are any extra, you know, Japanese exclusive references in the original script. Remember, the translated script does have some nice nods to things such as like Dolce and Gabbana. that was honestly funny. And there's just some other things that you'll be able to enjoy later on down the road. But yeah. So once you head over here, once you start taking on these enemies... Oh, by the way, I love the fountain. Lovely fountain. But no, now you have to destroy these enemies. So you have Seacron. You have Seacron and you have the other enemies that were on Earth. So the way that I see it, because once you get to the halfway point of this section, or, I mean, not the halfway point, like about a third of the way through, it's a one-way. It is a one-way path, and you won't be able to return until you have done the deed and taken the Void Captain hostage. So the best way I see fit for you to do this is to kill all the enemies here, but do not go through the one-way area. Go back, refill your fuel, and then take on the rest. That's the best way to handle this kind of area. And there are a few areas that are like this in the game, but by the time that you reach them, you already know this strategy. One of the biggest examples would probably be the planet Gothic in the Sirius system, where I have to revisit it like 2 or 3, like, you have to revisit it at least 3 times. The first time to get the energy tank that's there, the second to clear all the enemies on the bottom floor, and the third to fight the head of the White Wolves. We'll talk more about the White Wolves once we get to that part of the saga, though. But for now, you know, we're still gonna just go through here. Now, fortunately, just like any other good RPG, Now, the enemies here do not respawn. But what is essential, too, to know is that when you're here, you don't have to go through the entire area. There's the one-way section I was mentioning. Whenever you see an area with an arrow like that, that means it's always going to push you in that direction. Also, by the way, if you want to just get some free money or fuel here, you can. I think there's an extra fuel can right where I'm about to. I think right past these Seacrons that I'm destroying. Is it right here? Yes, it is. I think what makes this, more difficult, however, is the fact that you are only most of your refill tanks are going to be energy plus 1,000. It's not going to be energy plus 5,000 as how Star Cruiser MD handles it. But by the time that we get to the latter half of Sirius, and also once we get to Void, then you'll start seeing more areas where you have that energy plus 5,000, and even energy plus 10,000, which refills an entire energy tank. Now, if only this game had energy plus 5,000 for every refill from the get-go, or at least for all where the energy plus 1,000s were, then this game would be much more bearable to complete, especially at 25 megahertz. Playing this at 25 megahertz was so brutal when I first started really doing it because of how much the energy consumption went down, as I mentioned before. And it really does show. What you are seeing here is roughly 2.5 to 6 months worth of experience with this title. And I don't say that loosely, because this is a game I've wanted to make sure that I get right. I want to make sure that this title is played as accurately and optimally as possible. And this definitely shows Star Cruiser at its best. I do think, however, that when people do speedruns of this title, it's probably recommended to play at 25 megahertz, at least for RTS. Yeah, for RTS. For TAS, I would say go at the highest frequency that you can. RetroArch has 200 megahertz support, but I don't know if RetroArch has TAS support yet. Also, by the way, we're gonna get some information here. This is some information about Cutty Sark. Cutty Sark is the Red Star Cruiser. It is a Red Star Cruiser that is heavily dependent on speed, and it is a very, very deadly weapon. It is piloted by a man by the name of Jack Unaya. And you'll understand what we need in order to defeat Cutty Sark. But again, we won't really be seeing that until we get to Mars. By the way, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but don't you notice that this game is heavily dependent on invisible walls? Honestly, I despise that. I really do despise that this game is heavily dependent on invisible walls. Phantasy Star, to a degree, it wasn't nearly as bad as Star Cruiser is, but Phantasy Star, in the latter half of the game, once you start getting towards the bigger dungeons with more difficult boss fights, I forget if I think Medusa had it. I think one of the dragon fights, I know for a fact, had it. And when you're going up into the sky to fight Lashik, and then I think also, then eventually to fight Dark Force, right? Dark Force? I think it's Dark Force. It's been a long time since I've played Phantasy Star. I haven't played it since 2017. But yeah, in order to fight Lashik and Dark Force, there are a lot of invisible walls that you actually have to worry about. Star Cruiser basically takes that template and puts it on crack. I cannot stress that enough. Also, by the way, if at any point you happen to see, my mouse cursor show up on screen, or if you hear any audio skips in the game, that's just me making a save state. Now, you actually can constantly save in this game, but I never used the save system except for one key moment. You'll understand why in Part 7. But we'll get to that when we get to that. So, Leonov, it looks very different from how he... if memory serves correctly, he was an MD. But yeah, it looks very... Well, then again, all the Void Soldiers look very different from how they look elsewhere. In fact, this is actually a refresh of the art style that was in the original Star Cruiser. In the original PC-88 and Sharp X1 versions of the game, the characters actually look more Americanized as opposed to anime style. And that honestly caught me off guard when I went to Star Cruiser 2 and they decided, or at least when I started looking at raw footage of Star Cruiser 2, and they started, like, all the characters, it's a mixture of the original PC-88 version of the game and the anime style that is in the PC-9800 and Sharp X68000 ports. It feels so weird. It feels so weird to see such a dynamic design shift. But then again, you know, that's what happens when you make a game in 1988, port it to a whole bunch of systems in 1989, have a retelling of it in 1990 with an entirely different art style, and then you finally get the sequel in 1992 and 93 respectively. And now we find out that Diana Gaddis is missing. Now, Diana Gaddis she's a blonde in MD. In this game, you're probably going to be surprised as to how she looks. She has purple hair. Very different from how you would normally see her. And the design that Diana Gaddis has in the Sharp X68000 box art for Star Cruiser, she doesn't even have purple hair. Her hair, if my memory serves correctly, is brown. So there's a lot of dynamic, graphical shifts that this title has. It's not what you would anticipate. It feels very different from what you would expect out of a typical game from Japan at the time. But then again, you know, it's a space opera. Everybody's supposed to look bizarre. Man, this secretary gets around. Not only does she manage the I/O base, but she handles here, and she handles I think what is it? It's either one of the Axis bases or one of the colonies on a what is it? Rigel Kent. Yeah, right on Rigel Kent. See that bartender, that lovely green-haired Alfred. He liked what we did. It's no longer a problem. Now, amazingly, Masashi's not present. David Geed is still here. Geed's still here. We can talk to him. But you don't run into Masashi Clark until you head back to your Star Cruiser. So, by this point, you're already all set with what you have to do here. You don't have to stay here. But I am out of missiles. So I kind of do need to head elsewhere. And what better place to go for missiles than to go back to Earth? Because, man, if you do not go... Because Colony 1 and Earth are the two cheapest areas to get missiles. Anywhere else in the game, they will either cost 40 credits, 50 credits, 80, or 100. In some cases, they may even cost as high as 200, and in the case of Homing Missile 3, they go for no less than, if my memory serves correctly, 400. That's right, if you want to get 80 of those, 32,000 credits. Oh, I think I read the... I read the dates wrong. Oh my goodness, no, I was wrong. When I was talking about Yuko and Hidari, Yuko is closer, I think, to Brian's age, if my memory serves correctly. So, basically, I think, see, I forgot that this game handles dates kind of more similar to how it's handled in native Asia. So what they do is they put the year first, and then they put the date. Yeah, they put the year, and then the month, and the date. Here I am with myself forgetting that they did that, and I was thinking it was you know, month, date, year, as how it is here in the States, but I knew for a fact that it couldn't be date, month, year as how it was done in Europe. That just wouldn't feel right. So, as you saw, Masashi Clark wanted to offer Brian to enter the Hunters Guild, but you'll see what happens with that later on down the road. You probably won't really see much more on that until we get to Gargantua, or until after we're done on Void. But that's 7 more parts from now. So again, for the time being, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna refill my missiles. Loving the fountain. Could you imagine if there was a fountain that actually looked like that, and a whole bunch of triangles were just casually coming out? It honestly would remind me of something that you would see in a typical Avengers. Is it Infinity War? Infinity War and Endgame? But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that because you know, during the I Don't Feel So Good scene, everybody's turning into ducking triangles. I would love to see a whole bunch of little triangular pieces of water come out of a fountain. Somebody ducking make that here in Boston, or in any of the neighboring regions in the greater Boston section of the state. Oh, that would feel nice. And gotta get away from that enemy. But yeah. So yeah, the warp drive, as I mentioned before, you can only warp a small amount. It's not like how in Star Cruiser MD, where you can just literally warp to any part of the map at any given point in time. But back to Gibson. So Gibson's back, and he is about to tell you where you can get some good information. The information comes from a man who, get this, is a reference to the company that made this game, General Arsis. General Arsis can be found at positive 32, negative 159, and z-axis number 1, positive 1. Once you are within the vicinity of that area, you have to hang out there for a good amount of seconds. Depending on your frequency, it's going to be a little longer than usual. But once you reach that respective area, then you will be able to get the information that you so need. In this case, the area that you'll be heading to is, what is it? Yeah, you'll be heading to Mars after you get the information. If you head to Mars now, you will not get this information. You won't be able to access a hidden gate. You won't be able to find Diana Gaddis. So we have to head south. So see, once you get this laser pulse detected, which is a sensor, immediately stop your ship and then go backwards. Once you do so, you can find General Arsis. Arsis, of course, as I said before, is based on the name of the company that made this title. And bear in mind, Star Cruiser is not the first fully open-world game from them. If my memory serves correctly, there was a title that was a prelude to what Star Cruiser would eventually become. And that was released a year before, in 1987. I forget the name of the title right now, but that basically is you know what? Hold up. Hold up. This is raw footage. It's not gonna freeze on me. I can casually just... Let's go to Wikipedia. Let's go to Wikipedia and look up this. I have not rocked the wiki in a long time. Thanks, John, for making that possibly one of the greatest lines that we have ever heard in a Brain Scratch commentary. Rock the wiki! Or to Wikipedia! Let's see. What was the prelude for this title? Yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank. I'm kind of drawing a blank. Somebody edited the information for the English Wikipedia page, so I might need to look elsewhere. You know what? Let me just go to Arsis Software's section here. It was probably Reviver the Real-Time Adventure. It was either that or it was Wybarm. Wybarm? Wibarm? Not sure. But either way, one of those titles was the precursor to what we would have expected from Star Cruiser later on down the road, and it matches the time frame. Also, these relay stations, the relay stations are important to the game in which you can restock on fuel, and in some unique cases, you can actually get some weapons here. Some even have hidden items like that, hidden fuel. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. The only downside is the fuel doesn't respawn, so it doesn't really matter. But either way, that way I don't have to spend too much when I'm on Mars. So, of course, we're in the 2400s. By this point, Mars is very habitable. And unavoidable damage. Oh, I didn't take the unavoidable damage. Okay. But yeah. But unfortunately, a lot has happened here. You see that all these trees are dead. Or at least decaying. Those are cherry blossoms. That's right. Apparently, sometime like about in the 22 or 2300s, we, the people of Earth, decided to grow trees on Mars, and they were nothing but cherry blossoms. We wanted to make sure that there was something edible on Mars, and I can eat cherries too. I can eat virtually any berry so long as it is seedless. Because, you see, thing is, berries won't make my throat itch. If a grape is not sun-dried, in this case a raisin, the grape will make my throat itch. Regular fruit will make my throat itch. Because if you ever... And I brought up this on plentiful occasions many years ago, especially in 2016, yeah. Like, if you ever hear me going... Yeah, snorting like a pig. Snorting like a pig, but that's just me with my mouth closed constantly, forcing air to come up so that the itch goes away. Then yeah, that's basically that's what happens. Like that little part that hangs and dangles before the beginning of the top of the throat? Yeah, that's where all the itch goes to. So long as I clean that very quickly, I'll never have to worry about the itch staying there for more than 20 minutes. And, we just had a wall blow up in front of us. Yeah, this is why you have to make sure you have energy once you get to here. We're in front of Diana Gaddis. And, yeah, so this is actually part of the reason why they left a refill tank right in front, right before you go into the fights with the big hones. Yes, that's right, big hone. H-O-N-E, not H-O-R-N, H-O-N-E, and man does it feel good to hear it like that. So this is Nectar City. Nectar City? Well, where's all the flowers? Where's all the honey? I want some honey, dang it! Come on! Give us some good stuff. But Diana Gaddis just gave us the most important information. Decoy flares are the exploitation to killing Cuddy Sark. And we can only get decoy flares, at least in the solar system, in one specific area. We have to head back to Jupiter, but we won't know that until we go to Saturn. So, hello, Big Hone. Now, Big Hone is intended to be destroyed by Homing Missile 1. You could use your quantum gun, and don't get me wrong, I have done this with just a quantum gun. But oh my goodness! You can run out of energy almost so quickly here if you don't use your homing missiles. That your best bets is just kill as many big homes as you can with your homing missile 1. There are some repair kits that I just passed by. But yeah, once you run out of missiles, then start using your quantum gun. Because I'll be truthful, the atom gun is pointless here. It can kill these things, but not quickly enough. So, ran out of missile, gotta finish this up with quantum gun, and I think that's it. I think that was the last wave of enemies. If not, there's just one more. Nope, that was the end. So, got what I need to. I can refill my tank here, and that's basically it. We actually are. I think we're gonna go to the. We're gonna go to the bar. Nope, we're gonna go to the repair. Yeah. So, I'm sure that you've probably seen this at this point. I haven't pointed it out, but yeah, there are shops where you can refill both your shield and your fuel. But in most other cases, the two shops are separate. Only on Venus, if memory serves correctly, is the only area where you can actually refill your tank and also refill your shield at the same time. Other than that, there aren't a lot of areas. Mars, however, is still red from all of its rust, so yeah, it's just gonna keep looking like that. So, next destination, we're going to Saturn, but we're gonna go to Station 3 first. Because why not pass through a whole bunch of, oh yeah, by the way, you actually can take physical damage from the asteroids. If you happen to run into one, I think you just lose 1 unit of shield. So fortunately, it's not too problematic, but it is actually more of a problem in MD. The reason for that, and this is why I appreciate the way that the original Star Cruiser is handled over MD. In MD, if you lose all of your shield, that is an immediate game over. No matter what. Because it's not like this game where you have repair kits, because like once you lose all your shield in this particular title, you see those 6 letters underneath the shield bar? Those indicate your radar, your engine, navigator, weapon, what was F? I forget what F is. Oh my goodness. And then C is the cargo room. You know what? No, I think that F is the... I remember. F is the fuel tank. F is the fuel tank and C is the cargo room. If you lose the radar, you won't be... Like, you see that section on screen? You won't be able to see the internal map. If the engine gets hit, if memory serves correctly, you won't be able to warp. Losing the navigator means that you won't know what's where on the map, but you will still have the information for all of the planets. So if you can still autopilot, you can. W, of course, is weapon. If your weapon is destroyed, then you are unable to use it until you go to a repair shop or use a repair kit. If the fuel tank gets hit, you end up guzzling out twice as much fuel, regardless of which engine you have. If you lose the cargo room, however, and this will happen to me later on in the game, all of your single-use items are gone. That means that if you had any repair kits, if you had any decoy flares, or if you had any asteroid ores, those will all be gone. You're gonna need to go back to the shop. You're gonna need to repair. You're gonna need to go to a repair shop. Oh, by the way, tree native to Titan. That's right. We were able to take trees from Titan and plant them on Saturn. And they have that lovely design. The only thing is, there are other planets in the other star systems that happen to have Titan trees, which feels weird. Heck, even Neptune has trees native to Titan on its planet. It feels so weird. But yeah, but back to what you might lose in the cargo room. The only other things you won't lose in the cargo room are essential items. Like if it's a key item, like for example, if you've managed to get certain items later on throughout the game, like there's an ancient stone slab that you have to get some information on. That's something that stays. That stays in the game. You don't lose that. Later on, we're going to be getting the wall sensor, and that is possibly one of the most important items in the game if you need to deal with invisible walls, which guaranteed you will, especially on your first run around of this title. And also later on, we'll get a very ancient weapon that can destroy anything. It's the most powerful weapon in the game. It's respectively known as the Ancient Gun and an indeed ancient weapon. If you lose the cargo room in this game, you will not lose that weapon no matter what. But you'll understand more about the ancient weapon once we get to parts 7 and 8. Not now. We'll handle that when the time comes. Actually, no, more specifically parts 6 to 8. So, got some business with dealing with an alien ambassador, but that's not going to be for a bit. That will be once we get to Rigel Kent. You'll understand more on that when the time comes. Now, if you try going to the area where the first boss fight of the game is, you're not going to be able to do the boss fight because, well, you don't have the information to go there yet. So you have to go to Jupiter. You have to go to the Io satellite. And, of course, I made sure I had to restock up on missiles. Fortunately, 4,000 goes a long way in this game, so... yeah, and the weird thing is, it tells you in the game that you're getting credits every time you destroy an enemy. But... if you happen to if you go to any shop, you notice it has a $sign rather than the cent symbol. I do not remember the number sequence in the alt code to do the cent symbol. I think it's, I want to say it's like alt 165 or alt 159 or something around that. Hold up. Cent symbol alt code. I'm just going to look up on Google. (0162). 0162 is the alt code. Also, the reason why I'm coming here to Relay Station 1 is just so I can at least have all the bars handled. Now, amazingly, we're seeing me talk here. We're seeing Brian talk here about information that has already been gathered up. You're not supposed to go to Relay Station 1 this late in the Cutty Sark saga. You're never supposed to go here this late in the Cutty Sark saga. So, this ship is not going to land on Jupiter. It's going to be a little to the right. Now, what's actually more interesting, however, is Jupiter is a very gravitationally heavy planet, which ultimately makes me wonder, how exactly is anybody moving around on here? Like, for example, Brian's land tank. The land tank is actually, it's not even on wheels. It is in the air. It's moving around in the air. So again, it does feel weird. There are a lot of inconsistencies, but then again, like Clement says, it's a video game! Hey, there's Gibson. Now, technically, you don't have to go through all of IO in order to fight Cutty Sark. But if you go to negative 399, positive 0258, and positive 4, what will end up happening is the fight against Jakunaya will happen immediately. If, however, you want to make sure that you have your resources ready, I would say, let's go here. And we got a new tank. But goes down just as quickly as the Lesdarios. Actually, more quickly than last time. And here are the Castels again. This time, however, they've come back and they've got reinforcements. They are much faster, much more aggressive, and my goodness, the fact that you can even take on these guys with just your regular shield shows exactly how different it shows how easy these enemies are to kill, even with the quantum gun. By the way, you might have... Gandhi. The name of this tank is Gandhi. Or, well, actually, no. Knowing that this is a Japanese game, it's probably Gandhi. Day. Key emphasis on the day. But either way, they go down just the same way as the Lesdarios. Their AI is roughly the same as the Lesdarios, but they're actually slower. I would say that they're slower than the Lesdarios by comparison. And it definitely shows. But again, they have a decent enough hitbox that they can be taken down with ease. What I still find interesting though, like again, you take a look at the background here, you're able to see Jupiter. Which ultimately means that we're not literally on the planet Jupiter. Now, I forget, is Io because they indicate Io as a satellite here. By the way, if you're hearing anything outside, it's just our local trash. Yeah, local trash. Trash collection. It's probably a recycling collection, considering that it's on the other side. Yeah, Io is a moon. It's a moon for Jupiter. It's the 4th largest in the solar system outright. Taking a look here. Looks like a decayed piece of pepper jack cheese. Yep, that's right. The moon Io looks like a big chunk of deprecated pepper jack cheese with some dark mold spots on it. But I do believe that all those yellow spots are actually... I don't know if the yellow spots are land. I know that the dark yellow spots are land that are on the top and bottom of the planet. All that white, however, is ice. So, you know, that's some nice attention to detail. I've never actually taken a really good look at Io until right now. So, you know, it's kind of a nice appearance. And it actually kind of reminds me why... you know, humans do want to go to Io. They want to go to Titan. They want to make it habitable. The only question is, how? How are we going to warm up a moon so much to the point where we can do this? I guess we'll figure out that soon, right? But I don't know how long that'll be. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, but I know for a fact that when the time comes... we will be on some of Jupiter and Saturn's moons. You know, these fights are starting to get a little redundant now that there's a lot of them showing up. But, you know, this is fine. This is totally fine. By the way, that's me showing off the strafing in action. Because I'm playing on a DualShock 2, I have the strafing commands locked to L1 and R1. In terms of me accelerating and decelerating the ship as well as putting the ship in reverse, I have reverse set to L2 and I have accelerate set to R2. This actually does make things that much more bearable in the long run, and effectively does make the game it does make the overall controller flow feel correct. Like, if I wanted to... If somebody ever went out of their way to port the original Star Cruiser to, say, like, any PlayStation console, or to Sega Saturn... Well, the reason why I recommend the Sega Saturn is because it just so happens to have YM2151 support, which is what the Sharp X68000 natively uses. There is also mid-eye support for Star Cruiser, to my knowledge. You can put a Roland SC55 in this thing, and you will be able to get some really decent results. Oh, that's why it's considered... It's like... I didn't know, by the way, that this was actually a mining base. That's why all the ores are hanging around. But, you know, since we've already dealt with all the enemies in the first section, now we can deal with the remainder. We can deal with the remaining castles and what are you guys again? Oh yeah, Yondies. We can deal with you guys with ease. Yeah, I kind of like how it looks like sunset here, but yeah, again, it looks like sunset, but then you look here and then it's like the dead of night. There's an inconsistency, but I ultimately do feel that that was an issue with data limitations with the Sharp X68000 in 1988 and early 89. Because again, Star Cruiser, if this game were to have come out, like, suppose this game came out in 1996 instead of 1989. Sure, it probably would feel different, but I feel that more would have been done with this game to make it feel a bit more expansive. In fact, that's actually part of the reason why I really hope that at some point somebody comes out with a disassembly for this title. Because, oh my goodness, the things we could do with a disassembly if this title came out. Because I do intend to actually do some total conversions of this game with, like, very unique storylines. You know, probably even give you the ability to play as multiple characters. Because, you know, maybe some people are curious about what happens with Daniel Gibson's storyline. Maybe some people are curious with what's going on with David Geed and Diana Gaddis, Masashi Clark, even Daigo Hidari and Officer Sharonkov. There is so much that this game didn't have when it first came out that I ultimately feel it needs a true director's cut. And mark my words, if this game ever gets a disassembly and really good modding utilities, guaranteed I will put it to optimal use. No two ways about it. All the art will get modded, all the character models, anything you think of, you name it, it will get a change. Also, now we get Converter 1, finally. And the decoy flares. Each decoy flare is just 100 credits. You can only hold 20, just like I said before. By the way, there is an issue with the decoy flares I will be addressing. We will see that when we reach Cuddy-Sark. But for now, you know, there's some other things I've wanted to put into Star Cruiser in the form of a total conversion, like a complete retelling of the entire Dragon Ball franchise, from Dragon Ball to GT. You know, I want to put some Star Trek in here. I want some Star Wars. In fact, I would love to see this game be the template for porting over Star Wars Arcade, the Super 32X version of Star Wars Arcade, more specifically. And then, let's see, other stuff. I can imagine the Orville. Imagine the Orville being put in a game like this. Oh, it would feel so right. Seth MacFarlane would have a field day with this title. I know it in my heart. If he were to be exposed to Star Cruiser, or Star Cruiser modded to be the Orville in every individual season, I know for a fact he would love it. This is so much. Oh, and also, let's also not forget, like, for example, let's turn the entire Star Fox franchise into Star Cruiser mods. Oh, I know fans of Star Fox would love that. They would not get enough. I know they would not. So, we are actually about to come up to we're in the last 12 and a half minutes of the part. I'm making a save state here for good reason. What I'm about to show you is what to not do when you go to the boss fight for Cuddy-Sark. So remember the coordinates. I want to say it's around there. It's around there on the map. -3, again, it's -399. what, positive 0 to 56 and positive 4. Once you get there, let's see, my Y coordinate's about to get a little too close. Hit manual. Good. Okay, and just gotta go as far to the left as I can. Once you're close enough, it doesn't matter how close you are on the X and Y axis, so long as your Z axis is correct. As long as your Z axis is correct along with the upper two numbers, you'll be fine. So now we are in the boss fight. Jakunaya is about to call us on screen. Got that lovely medieval style armor, although it does also have a bit of a futuristic style to it. So this is a big problem, and this was in the original Star Cruiser as well. When you go to the menu and start to use your decoy flares, this happens. You just crashed the game. There's nothing you can do about that. What's the remedy? Find out. So here is what you're supposed to do. The decoy flares in this game, the way that they function is this. No matter what kind of battle you are in, when you use the decoy flares, it will basically prevent any enemy that was caught within its range from shooting a weapon. You are able to use the decoy flares in XM6 Pro X68K. You cannot use this on native hardware without the relevant bug fixes, and you also cannot use the decoy flares in XM6 Type G. According to Celcion, when he was working on this, he was trying to fix the bug. This appears to our knowledge, this is an issue with RAM. And very likely somebody will fix this. If not him, if not any of his crew at Nebulous, it will be someone else. Because the modding resources from him are available, to my knowledge anyway. He did mention that on Twitter. So, wishfully we'll see decoy flares work properly. But, for the time being, we're going to need to improvise. Now, Cutty Sark is pretty damaging. Every single shot that Cutty Sark delivers is roughly 4 units of shield, and on your base shield type, this can be brutal, especially at 25 megahertz. So what you have to do here, as you see now, I'm starting to have parts damaged. So yep, gotta use your repair kit. So yeah, I have to just use the quantum gun to kill Cutty Sark. And the fortunate thing is, you don't have to use homing missiles or anything. Just make sure that you are slow enough. Make sure you are within mid-range speed. So anything between 35 and 45 is fine. 39 is that sweet spot that this fight loves in order to kill Cutty Sark proper. But if you decide to go a little slower, just make sure that you are still within range to constantly destroy every single bullet that Cutty Sark delivers, and eventually Jakunaya will be dead. So these fights, the space battles between this and who you will eventually find the Blue Star Cruiser later on, Barnard Talk, these fights will take roughly about 5 to 10 minutes at worst. And in my case, that's usually fine. So, yeah, you don't really have much to worry about. Just make sure that you actually, once you're here, however, like you see how the quantum gun is just firing rapidly? Also, yeah, you don't really have to worry because if you hold down the regular shot button, it fires regularly. The reason why the atom gun was working with auto fire is because I have the triangle button mapped so that it does 30 presses per second. That's why it's able to shoot at the rate that it is. But every gun beyond this, quantum gun, gravity gun 1, 2, and 3, all of them have native rapid fire support, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, you may also wonder if I'm actually doing any damage to Cutty Sark every single time that I am here and then when I have to head back. The answer to that question is yes. there is damage being done, but you see, like, the other supporting enemy ships, you cannot destroy them, no matter what you do. They're like the two skeletons that you fight against when you're dealing with Deathbringer in the Genesis and Mega Drive port of Golden Axe. But that's a situation in and of itself. But as for everything else, so yeah, so let's see. So I already got rapid fire support out of the way. You know, this is a 100-minute program, and yet I'm still having trouble trying to think of things to say. You know, the crazy thing is, since I'm just doing this all right off the bat, it can be a bit brutal. But yeah, as I said, once you know what you're doing, you're like, oh my goodness, that could, if I was a little slower there, yeah, Cuddy Sark would have been down. But nope. Nope, just gotta take my sweet anus time. Oh my goodness. Alright, yeah, weapon was damaged. I wouldn't have been able to keep using the quantum gun there. But again, oh yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I was saying. See, lost the radar. Couldn't see anything on screen. Oh no, now I remember. I think if you lose the navigator, you're unable to see what's in the center bottom of the screen. But yeah, but no, I am doing damage to Cuddy Sark every single time that I'm here, and every single time that I have to revisit. But what's happening is that the health is not reset. The health of the enemy is not reset in a space battle such as this. It is kept in, I'm not sure, I think it's kept in RAM, that the health of the enemy is constantly being depleted, even if you have to constantly revisit a planet, or if you have to leave to go to another area to fight. It's exactly the same way as it's handled in Star Cruiser MD, for those that are coming into the original Star Cruiser from that game. The only reason why I know this is because eventually my homing missile 1s in Star Cruiser MD against Cuddy Sark started working. And yeah, so same situation here. So I think, yeah, we're about to, are we almost done? Oh, nope. That was a close one. See, can we get him again? Nope, he is off our Z-axis. He is off of our Z-axis. So let's see if I can find him again. And again, Cuddy Sark and Barnard Talk are both relentless ships. They will keep firing at you until you perish. So, what's the best method of retreat? If you have enough energy to spare, just, oh my goodness, warp out. Ugh. Oh, that hurt. That hurt. Now, there is an interesting glitch that does happen during the boss fights, too. If you happen to come across a regular enemy before the boss fight, you will actually get the regular enemy fight track, which is astounding. It's a weird glitch, but it's one that's still there regardless. Is this the end? Yes it is! Boom shakalaka! And you get 8,000 credits for your troubles. So either way, Officer Sharon-Kov is happy. He'll then give you the, he'll give you the go-ahead to go to Rigel Kent. He'll give you the transport pass. And where the enemy was, you can now go to the, the gravity catapult. And the gravity catapult will forever be here throughout the entire course of the game. And see, this is where the true essence of open world really starts making its presence shown. Unlike how it's handled in Star Cruiser MD, you can constantly go back and forth between solar systems. However, in Star Cruiser MD, you are not given that luxury until, I want to say, the very end of the game. In MD, You actually have to complete whatever your primary mission is there before you can go back to the gravity catapult. And that's a problem. That is a big problem with the way that they handle, Rigel, Kent, and Sirius. But then again, Star Cruiser MD is a game that runs on no money. So very likely, you're not going to really be suffering from any problems. The only problem that you'll probably have is maintaining your duck and health. Because, oh my goodness, the health and the fuel, don't get me wrong, there are a good amount of recharge stations, but they are not within close proximity of each other at times. Either way, so here's one of the final bars of the solar system. Hiroshima effect. You know what? The interesting thing is, he dyed his hair green, you can tell it's dark, and yet he has a white mustache. Typical anime Alfred. I'm about to... No, I accidentally went out of the gravity catapult. I was trying to see if I could strafe to stay centered, but nope. So here we go, we got Brian here, just talking with this functioner. He's not an officer. Attendant of the system. Now, the way that they have the gravity catapult, the Rigel Kent is in the center, Sirius is in the right, and Barnard is on the left. You can only go to Rigel Kent and the solar system on Sirius, but you can go to Barnard from Rigel Kent if my memory serves correctly. But we're about to warp out. We're about to go to Rigel Kent and continue the storyline. We'll be seeing Joshua Aykroyd in part 2. Man, 100 minutes and change. Yep, over an hour and 41 and a half minutes of commentary well spent. This shall be one of the utmost fun commentaries I have had in a long time. Man, and it's also going to be the biggest one, too, in terms of time. This is the longest commentary, to my knowledge, that I have done on this channel. Roughly, I think on par with, if you combine both the Mega Drive and Saturn versions of Side Pocket 2. So Minnesota Fats Pool Legend and Side Pocket 2 Legend of the Hustler. Hey, as my first role-playing game of this channel, I think this was long overdue. So yeah, you know I'm going to put the best into this. So that is it for part 1. We actually have a little miniature music video for you to enjoy, recapping the events of this part. So hope you enjoy. It's the opening of Star Cruiser, pitted up with Natsu Fuji and Heatwave.